All right, let's get right into it. We're going to be exploring the really provocative ideas from Nihan Kaya's book, Aile Yoktur, which basically means there is no good family. This whole explainer is going to dig into ideas that challenge, our most fundamental beliefs about being a parent, about love, and what it actually takes to heal from our childhoods.
We've all heard this, right? It's pretty much the bedrock of our culture. You hear it at baby showers, you see it on greeting cards. It's just presented as this universal, absolute truth.
But almost immediately, the book just throws a wrench in the whole thing. It asks us to stop and consider a really radical question. What if the script we're all following about family isn't actually ours? What if it was just handed to us?
And that brings us to our very first section. The book's argument is that for a lot of people, becoming a mother isn't some deep, personal choice, but more like the next expected step on a path that society has already paved for you.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Life can feel like a series of checkpoints, can it? Society is always asking, have you hit the next one yet? This relentless series of questions, it creates this invisible but very real pressure, guiding us down a path we might not even consciously chosen for ourselves.
And the book gets even more specific than that. It argues that even our most seemingly personal desires, like, say, wanting exactly 2 children, might not really be our wish at all. Instead, it's more like a lesson we've been taught by the modern world, a norm we've just absorbed without even thinking about it.
Okay, so let's see how this connects to the next big myth the book wants to dismantle, this idea of pure, selfless, unconditional love from a parent.
And right here, the book draws a really stark contrast. On one side, you've got the myth, the sacred, perfect ideal we're all sold. But on the other side is the book's much more challenging reality, that even the most powerful parental love is, at its core, selfish.
So to really get this, the author brings in some philosophy. Jean-Paul Sartre once said that to love someone is often a project to be loved in return. From this perspective, a parent's love isn't just a one-way gift, it's more like an investment made with the expectation of getting love and maybe obedience and validation back from the child.
And this quote from Kafka really highlights the darker side of that whole dynamic. He saw the family as this inherent power imbalance. So even the most loving gestures, just trust me, I'm your mother, can be a kind of tender tyranny, a gentle way of enforcing control.
So, what's it like for a child living under these myths? Well, that brings us to the consequences, and specifically to what the book calls the child's invisible pain.
At the very heart of this pain is something called emotional invalidation. It's what happens when a parent, often without meaning to, tells a child that what they're feeling is wrong. The parent basically becomes the judge and jury of the child's entire inner world.
The book shares this really powerful, everyday example. Just picture a family on vacation. The mom wants to get that perfect photo, so she tells her little toddler to smile. But the child? She just doesn't want to. She turns her head away.
And there it is. The child gets punished, not because she did something bad, but because she failed to perform the right emotion on command. The message she gets is crystal clear. Your real feelings are not okay, and you'll be penalized for having them.
So what's the long-term damage here? Well, the psychologist Alice Miller, who is a huge influence on this book, argues that when you tell a child that their reality is wrong, you're destroying their ability to trust themselves. And that right there is the root of so much insecurity in adulthood.
In fact, the book makes a pretty staggering claim. It says that this constant invalidation, this silencing of a child's inner world, is the #1 problem in our world. And why? Because this is precisely how trauma gets passed down from one generation to the next.
So if we can't even trust our own feelings, how are we supposed to heal? Society has a very simple answer for us: forgive your parents. But, as you might guess, the book argues this is just another deception.
Now, this might be the most shocking statement in the entire book, and it comes again from Alice Miller. The idea that you have to forgive in order to move on is completely rejected. Forgiveness, she argues, actually has zero healing power.
And why is that? Well, because the pressure to forgive isn't actually about helping the child. It's about protecting the institution of the family. It basically forces the victim to let the parent off the hook, which silences their story and makes sure that sacred myth of the good parent stays perfectly intact.
Okay, so if forced forgiveness is a trap, then what does real, genuine healing actually look like? The book lays out a very, very different path.
It really boils down to 2 paths. There's the false path, which is the one society pushes on us, just deny the pain, forgive, and forget. But then there's the true path. It's much harder, for sure. It requires us to face what really happened, to finally feel the anger we were never allowed to show, and to mourn the childhood we never got.
Now, this part is absolutely key. The book's point is that it's not the anger or the sadness that makes us sick. It's the suppression of those feelings. Because those buried emotions, they don't just vanish. They fester inside us and become the source of our deepest psychological wounds.
So ultimately, healing demands a pretty radical shift in our loyalty. We have to stop defending the perfect, idealized image of our family and start defending the reality of our own childhood. We have to finally start listening to that child inside of us who was always told their truth didn't matter.
And this really brings us to the absolute core of the book's argument. The original harm, that's one trauma, but the deepest trauma comes later. It's that profound, crushing loneliness of being disbelieved, of having your reality denied not just by your family, but by a whole world that seems to side with the parent every single time.
And so we end with this question. This book isn't just a critique of the family, It's a challenge to all of us. What would actually change if, as a society, we just chose to believe the child? What kind of world would we create then?